Good morning, or evening, or afternoon, wherever you are. I got a day off today, and I thought, hey, it's Sunday somewhere in the U.S. Cheers. So why not sign on? Do a little live event. Yep, there's Mike. Mike Johnson, you're first. It's just you and me, Mike. What's happening? What are you doing? What do you got going on tonight? Oh, Renato has joined. And I'm in Tokyo. Jake says, when are you coming back to the States? A couple weeks. A couple more weeks to go on this Japan tour I'm on. It's a beautiful day in Tokyo. It's hot as hell, as it has been for weeks. There it is, folks. The urban mecca that is modern Tokyo. Although it's cooled off a little bit, but barely. What a crazy summer it's been of heat. It's been a summer of sweat. Hey, from Dallas, says Aaron. I bet it's hot there too. And Bangkok, 9:06 a.m. You're earlier than us over there. Phoenix. And Chris is in Arizona. He's melting at 112 degrees. The humidity's so high here that it it says it's 91, but feels like 107. That's what it said this morning. So you go outside and just kind of start sweating immediately. It feels normal now to me. But yeah, it's bonkers. Crazy humidity. So we got about 51 people online. That's cool. Apologize for not doing these things on a more regular basis. It just seems to be next to impossible, and when you're traveling and moving around and stuff like that, to keep a steady time. More often than not, it seems like on at this time or previous, I'm traveling a lot. Sundays and Mondays, always seem to be traveling. So what's up? Let's talk about guitars. Dan says he's in Wisconsin playing through his PT100. That's awesome, man. Where'd you get it from? I wonder where in who's the surgery dealer out that way? And I'm glad you're digging it. BE100 versus BE Deluxe for someone who plays at home with an aux, Fractal, or Kemper. Those are Dave's amps, of course, Friedman's amps. Well, the BE100 is basically, I think it's just a little more basic version. I mean, to be honest, you're probably going to be able to get most. I'm a little bit talking on my butt here because I'm not exactly sure. I've seen a BE Deluxe Dave's amp. I've never played through one, but I think that mainly your main features on that amplifier are things like full 3 channels and stuff like that. There might be some extra voicing options available, but probably, my point being, if you're playing at home most of the time, the BE100 probably has most of the similar sounds. It's just like if you were playing live and you need a lot of switching options, I think the BE Deluxe has all that stuff. It's a 50 watt too, right? I'm not sure if he does it in a 100 watt yet. He might have started doing it in a 100. I'm just not sure. So I think you're going to be able to get both those amps to sound about the same, but one's going to have more options for kind of like switching live and stuff. But I don't want to talk out of turn. I could be wrong. There might be voicing options on the Deluxe that you can't get on the 100. I think his amp, no matter what, the BE100 remains his most popular amp, and it's his kind of, that's his benchmark kind of. That's what people think of when they think of the Friedman sound generally. It's hard to go wrong with one of those if that's what you want. And it is a really great sounding amp. What's the distressed green Telly style guitar that has the Filtertron in it that I've used in an old video? It's a Tressart. So it's a metal body, and it's hollow, and it's got a Filtertron in the neck, and then a Telly style pickup at the bridge and a Bigsby on it. It's a very specific kind of guitar. It is really cool. I haven't played it very much. It's been in storage for a while. Sometimes I miss it here for this particular gig that I do here. I think it's perfect for a couple things. I can think of some things I actually wish I had it here for on this tour, and I don't have it here. It's hard because I have to pick. I do get the luxury of bringing a lot of guitars, but you can only take so many, and I need a lot for some of the different songs and tunings and things. So it's like, no matter what, I got to bring like a specific sort of 6 or 7 guitars over here, and then beyond that, I have room for maybe 3 or 4 more, and that's it. So I have to be careful about what I pick, and the green one I just didn't bring this time. But yeah, Tressart, that looks like it came from the bottom of the ocean. I love the look. It's all rusted out and green. See here. Jason says he's in Melbourne and he's loving the new album. Thank you. Appreciate it. Album is out everywhere now. If you want to check it out, there's a link actually on my homepage. So at petethorn.com, if anybody wants to listen to it and hasn't heard it, you can go and just click on the link there. And it's a smart link that'll take you to links to get it on iTunes or Amazon, or you can stream it off of Apple Music and Spotify and all that stuff. I hate Spotify. I hate even saying that. You can do it. I relented and did it. Just ordered some thornbuckers from my Jaguar, says Torrance. Can't wait to see how they sound. That's cool. So it's a Jaguar with like 2 humbuckers or something, like one of those Cobain style ones or something. That's cool. Let's see here. Robert says he's got individual mod pedals, Phase 90 script, Trelicopter, I don't know that one, Tremolo, Electric Lady, TC Chorus. Would you prefer the Mobius? Well, the Mobius I found was the first. The Mobius is amazing, because yeah, it actually does an amazing job of emulating a lot of different pedals. And no, it's not perfect, but it's like it's the great jack of all trades pedal that I can usually get close enough. I've sort of found with modulation pedals that I don't use them all the time. I use them for a few specific things, and filters too. So it's like even like the wah on the Mobius. I've found numerous times where I use the touch wah on the Mobius because it actually either sounds more appropriate for a certain part. For instance, if you're doing kind of a funky, like a maybe a reggae sort of thing, that the T wah in there is like more an appropriate sound than I find the wah pedal, which sounds more like Hendrix or something. But the touch wah has this kind of more kind of quirky sound to it that I really like. But also, there's been times where with the Mobius that this singer I'm performing with wants me to be downstage and playing like a solo with them, but they want wah, which is impossible. So it's funny how many times that's come up where it's like, well, I'll just use the T wah on the Mobius and it gets switched in, and then I can run around and have a wah wah while I'm playing. So that's a great use for it. Even the Univibe sounds good to me. If you're a dedicated kind of hardcore Univibe person, it probably like, oh no, it's not as cool as the real thing. But I'm not that versed in the original Univibe sound. I don't have this like connection to it where it's got to be exact. It sounds good to me. It's like that. It really cops that kind of sound and feel good enough for me. So also the EVH flanger preset that I was able to make, I almost nailed the tone of the real MXR flanger with it, to the point where I was switching back and forth, and even my tech was like, dude, it's really close, like, and I was like, you're right. And it was the first flanger I've been able to find digital kind of modded, I should say, modeled flange that I could do that with, that deep kind of whooshing, flange that the Van Halen pedal got. So I've had great success with it, and I think it's a killer pedal. I still have a little Phase 95 on my pedal board, because that's the one analog effect that's just so fun. And it's small little pedal that fits fine, so I've got that on there. But that and the Mobius sounds good to me too. I really like the Mobius, obviously. It sounds terrific. One pedal I would not want to have off of my board for sure. I got 106 people online. It's good. Glad folks show up, even though it's not at the regular time. Okay, just moving down in the chat. What's your review of the Helix? I want one. That was from Luke. So I just got a Helix sent here, actually, to Japan. Number one, I need a really, really reliable backup, just in case, like, what if my pedal board goes down on stage? It kind of freaked out the other guitar player in the band I'm playing with here. He had a problem where his pedal board died at the last, second to last song, I think, at our first Budokan show over here. And, it really makes you think, like, well, I've got 2 amps up there, so if one amp went down, I'd be okay. But what do I do if my pedal board goes down? Switcher, something happens. It's like, yes, I can just plug into the amp, but you're going to be down for a minute. It's going to cause a problem. So I was like, what if I just get a Helix over here, and I set it up with 4 basic sounds, and then what if we put it on an AB box with my entire rig, so that if need be, my tech could just plug me into it, throw it down out there in front of me, and I'm live in the PA, still got sound. Well, what if we just run it simultaneously, maybe, with a Y split that's buffered and stuff, and that sound is always going to the PA, but it's muted in the PA and in my in-ears. And then if I have a problem, they just open up those channels, and there's the Helix, and it's live. So that's the number one thing, is I can use it for that. But also just for, like, I don't know, what if the chance of one-offs or something here comes up, or we want to do, some quick recording or something like that. So lots of reasons. So anyway, I got a Helix sent here, and I'm going to program it up and use it for that purpose. So I'm really excited about that, just to be kind of covered completely in all situations. What else we got here? Glasgow checking in. It's 3:10 a.m. Wow, you're up late, my friend. Let's see here. What do I think of the keys? Am I saying this right? It's Kiesel, right? Sorry for my ignorance, but Kiesel and Carbon guitars. I don't know that much about them. I know that it's an offshoot that came out of Carbon, and that they're headless, right? I had a kind of a debate about this online this week with somebody that was very into headless guitars, and that's great. I mean, I see a lot of the younger players, doing the headless thing, and it's like a thing, and it's like, Tosin, his guitar's headless, right? And it's like, is it? I think he plays the headless guitars, and a lot of players are, what is it, Strand? I sound like an idiot because I don't know these guitars that well. I feel like it's almost a different instrument, but the Strandberg, what are they called? That's become such a thing. I actually played one the other day in a music store over here for the first time, and that weird neck, the square neck, it's like playing a different instrument almost. So the headless thing in general, I am not. I would maybe like to get one at some point and mess around with it and spend some time with it. But I'm really a firm believer that the headstock, there's a lot of tone in it, and if you cut the headstock off a guitar, it's not going to sound maybe like guitars that I'm traditionally used to, Tele Strats, Les Pauls, 335s, that kind of thing. It can't. Now, it can be a different thing, and that's cool. Kind of like the Stein. I like the approach of them, how they look different and have fan frets, and they're very modern and stuff. Because you shouldn't make it try and sound like a traditional guitar. It's not. It's so different. So I love that young players are using them and doing different things with them, and kind of different. It's like, so it's a whole thing. I just don't think it's my thing necessarily. I think that a lot of the tone of the guitars that I'm used to and the sounds that I like to hear and I gravitate towards, a lot of that tone's in the headstock. Gil Yaron is actually the one that pointed that out to me. He goes, bite the headstock and play open strings. And when you do that, you feel the headstock vibrating in your teeth. Like crazy, There's a lot of tone that's coming all the way down the neck into the headstock. And when you change the shape of a headstock, or you change the mass in the headstock, it changes the sustain characteristics of a guitar and the tone characteristics. Just like, way back in the late 70s, early 80s, I remember those things called fat heads. You could take a big piece of brass and block it on the headstock, basically, and that would give the headstock more mass and actually change the sound of the guitar, and it audibly changed it. So there's a lot of going on up there, and you lop off that piece of wood, and I don't know, these are things that we don't take into account that much. It's like when Eddie Van Halen carved his Explorer or Destroyer Ibanez, right? He took the big piece out of the back of it and stuff like that, and he said it ruined the guitar and it never sounded the same when he removed that wood. He just didn't like it anymore. Start changing the big major characteristics of a guitar design like that, it's going to change the sound. So I would try it, and I would maybe even like to get one at some point to mess with, but I don't know that it's my. It's just I'm really kind of a traditionalist when it comes to guitar design, in that I just love Strats, Tellies, 335s. I'm not like a Fender or Gibson person necessarily. I like it all, but a little, Bonamassa basically plays like all kinds of guitars, but they're all those vintage. I'm a little bit locked into that. Although I grew up in the 80s kind of playing guitars with Floyds and stuff, so that doesn't bother me. But, I would have a hard time with those, are they called Strandberg? I don't know what they're called. But the neck on that thing, man, I just couldn't. I was like, well, how are you supposed to play this with this big square thing in the back? There's got to be. I feel like I need a lesson on it. Like, how do I hold this? This is different. It's obviously supposed to work, but um, favorite nut for a Stratocaster, material and brand. Dave's asking. I don't know about brands. Generally, if I need to get a new nut on a guitar, I just go to a tech and say, "Can you cut?" You know, it's something where you have to go to a tech and get it cut and get it done properly and just right. I find I'm super picky about the height of the nut on guitars. If it's too high, the action on the whole guitar feels off to me. So the nut's got to be just right. I like the Tusk nuts that Surrey uses. They're good. And I've got no problem with those. Other than that, I mean, just a good bone nut on a vintage style Strat or Telly is a desirable thing, I think. Yeah, so I would say just a real, a bone nut or the Tusk ones I seem fine with. And the main thing with me is that it's done by a competent tech that gets it cut really low, but not so low as obviously that the open strings are buzzing. But a lot of attention is put into that. If you've got a newer guitar that's right from the factory and it's kind of an off-the-line guitar, certainly, Gibsons and stuff, I've had plenty of them where the nut is just too high from the factory, and I've had to take it to techs and get them and it really changed the way that the guitar feels. It's an important part of the way the guitar feels. How many shows will you play in Japan on this trip? How are the shows going? Shows are going amazing. Every seat is full all the time, and it's always just an adventure on stage with the fellow I play with over here. It's so much fun. But it's not a lot of shows. I think it's 13 or 14 shows, and I'm here for a few months. So that's because he really likes to rehearse a lot and nail in the show, try a lot of different things and stuff. So we have a long initial rehearsal period, and then after that, there's only kind of so many places you can play in Japan, and he's got a big stage set that requires a few days to move in between cities and stuff like that. And it's also a busy touring season here, so the venues are booked a lot, and they have to space the gigs, and stuff because of that. So we end up playing, once we get going, usually a couple, 3 shows a week or a couple shows a week. So they're all spaced out, kind of, and I've got a bunch of time off right now, and then we're headed down south to Kagoshima and Fukuoka for the last 4 shows. So I'll be here a couple more weeks for those last 4 gigs. Let's see here. What artists would you consider your ideal gig to play for or with, Thomas? Well, I love what I'm doing now. I really have a terrific time playing with Yoshi. I mean, other things I would love to do. Chris was my number one. That I really wish I could have just made more music with Chris, to be honest. And after his tragic, awful passing, I often thought like it. To be honest, it sort of took a little bit of the wind out of my sails as far as like. Where do I want to go now with this? Like, who do I want to tour with? And I sort of, it sounds a little, I don't mean it to sound depressing or something, but there was a little bit element of like, well, kind of nobody. It was sort of like, I just sort of want to, what I was feeling was I sort of just want to do my own thing, write music and be creative and stuff like that. It took a little bit of the wind out of my sails of touring, I guess, just with people, because I really just sort of wanted to, and I thought maybe it would happen again at some point that we could go play together again. As far as the Sideman stuff, that's all I'm saying. But I'm sure other things are going to come up, and it'll be, you kind of weigh them as they come. It's like, oh, there's a chance to play with so and so. They're doing auditions or something. And you think about it and go, can I see myself doing that? And many times it's been, in my current gig, it's like I didn't know Tiyoshi's music before. I got the phone call, and then I had to go to YouTube and look and see what he does. And go, well, that looks like fun, And my gig before that was Mylène Farmer, who's a big pop star, kind of the Madonna of France. And it's like, can I see myself doing that? And then you kind of get the music, and you start to get accustomed to it. Watch some of their old concert videos and stuff, and go, I think I could do this, And then all of a sudden, you're up there on stage with them, and you're doing it. And you do it a year of touring, and you have fun. So I'm open to checking out anything. I guess I have what I was saying earlier was I have a little bit of a problem. I like seeing, like, I get that question sometimes, who would you love to play with? And I don't know. I mean, I'd sort of try and not idealize or put myself in that role anymore. Like I wait for things to come and then check them out and then see if I'm interested in them, I guess. If I think it would be a good fit. Chris says, buy Pete's album. It's freaking awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, that's the other thing is there's a big part of me that like I've gotten such great response for this record, and people seem to, and it's like this is sort of what I feel like I should be doing is making more of my own music. If there's a way to do more of that, while continuing to tour with other folks and stuff, but you know, I like at this point or whatever age I'm at and stuff. It's really nice to just write songs and start putting my own creative output out there and maybe touring or something on my own. You know, it's something I haven't done yet, and people ask me now. I've got 2 solo albums, so it's like I've probably got enough material that I could put together a 12 or 14 song set and go out and do a tour, I guess, of some sort. So it's just weird going from the sideman thing to becoming the artist. It's a whole different thing. But let's see here. Mr. Mark says Buxom Betty like on the BE50 clean channel, not Dirty Shirley. I'm not sure what that means, but talking back about the are you talking about maybe the design of the clean channel on the BE50 or the BE Deluxe, whatever it's called. Marmalade Cream is asking about Phase 90s, 74 script reissue or Phase 95. I'm happy with the little Phase 95 I have on my board. I haven't actually directly compared it to the script reissue. I sort of had to use the smaller pedal because it's all I had space for when I downsized my pedal board. But it sounds great. You know, it does the Phase 90 thing. I like a lot of different Phase 90s. I'm not like, oh, it's got to be the script. I like the 90s block logo ones. They sound a little more like defined in their sweep. They're a little less sort of, some of the older ones are a little more subtle, I guess, in the phasing. But I like them both, you know. It's just a slightly different sound. So I'm happy with the little one. I think it works great and it saves space on the board. Tim says, got your new album. It's fantastic. Fantastic. Great songs, great chops. Thank you. Love the video for Dirty Town. Thank you, man. I really appreciate it. I appreciate it. Please share. Please share. I feel like I haven't done enough promotion for the new record. I've been kind of like, I put it out kind of while I was on tour, and I've been sort of like over here and checking out a little bit from everything while I've been doing this work. But backing up here in the chat a little bit, trying to figure out where I am. Do I like the Kemper? Says Braxall. Yeah, I do. I have a Kemper at home, and I use it in my home rig for recording, and I've used it live a little bit. Have I ever jammed with Marco Miniman? Yes, once at Sir Party. We played Rock and Roll together by Led Zeppelin. I remember him saying, like, do you know how to play the intro? You know what the count is or whatever? And I'm like, yeah, I know what it is. And, you know, you know, the drum thing. So he goes, and I was like, yeah, I'm good. So if anybody doesn't know out there, Rock and Roll is the drum intro to it. If you're confused about where one is, it's Johnny Be Good. So that's how you play Rock and Roll. So check it out if you've always been confused about the intro and when to come in. If your drummer plays it correctly, he should be playing the accents of you know, that's what Bonham was thinking. He was thinking about Chuck Berry, Johnny Be Good. Steven says he's digging the Keeley mod station. I haven't tried that one. I have not. More Guitar says, love the album. Everyone on the broadcast should get it and support the medium we all have enjoyed. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. How is touring going? Do you have your entire rig? I do have my whole rig. 2 PTs and my full pedal board and about 10 or 12 guitars. About everything. Okay, I'll move down a little bit. Harry B says, do I know if UAD plans to create new loudspeakers for the aux? I don't know that, but you could use any studio monitor with it, and it'll work great. Whatever studio monitors you're comfortable with. Just created a 90s era cover band with a female lead singer. Cover songs that we must cover. I guess Cranberry stuff or Garbage, or, well, Garbage is kind of hard because all the stuff in there. But if you could do it, you should probably do a whole song, Celebrity Skin or something. What else? 90s female cover songs. You should probably do some Alanis Morissette. You should probably do. Oh, you're not asking specifically about female songs. I see you're saying doing Two Princes, No Rain, My Own Worst Enemy, Creep. Yeah, I mean, what other 90s stuff? Play some Jane's Addiction. That's always fun. Some Soundgarden. Let's see here. More radar question. Want to play loud amps quietly at home. No recording. Guitar, amp, load box, more. But then how do I get to go to 2 monitors? Get a little mixer. It doesn't have to be expensive. A little Mackie or Behringer or something. And maybe something that's got an aux send. And then you could plug in an effect unit and do it as you would in the studio, right? So on the send, you could send out to like a delay or delay and reverb or something like that, and then blend it in via the effect return, and it'll be just like you're running a wet dry wet rig. It'll be in parallel, and then plug on the output of the mixer 2 studio monitors and just turn them up to whatever level you want, and then you can blend in that and get it like a killer, amazing, stereo guitar sound. Amplifier, load box, more into the mixer, 1 channel of a mixer, a little bit of stereo effects blended in the mixer out to 2 monitors. You can do it all for probably a $500 investment, I guess, like a little mixer. Those are cheap. I mean, you can get little ones that you could use for like under $100, but then studio monitors are going to cost you probably at least $300 for a pair. You probably want to get something good. I recommend the little Atoms. Excuse me. I love Atom monitors. They sound great, and they're not too expensive, but they're not the cheapest you can get, that's for sure. Yeah, that's how you'll do it. Some studio monitors actually have, like I remember having this pair of inexpensive Tenoys that have a cable that links them together, an 1/8" cable. So you could run them out of, say, like an iPhone or something, and then it would kind of daisy chain the 2 monitors. But no, I would just get a little mixer. That's the best way to do it at home. Vibro Steve, was that Wilkinson tram something new, or do the Allen screws lock strings in their standard models? No, it's something brand new, a brand new design for the tremolo that I made the video about last time. Just acquired a Marshall Origin 20H. What speaker cab would I put with it? Be restricted to a 112 or a 212? Well, for a small little cabinet, the Surs are really nice. The Bogner Cube is nice. Yeah, I would just, maybe like I do like the kind of these days the little horizontal. Look for a used Marshall 2061X cabinet too. Those are cool. They're like it looks like a little baby Marshall 412, but it's 212, and they're mounted like this diagonally in the square cabinet. Those are really nice. And I think what's the company? Mojo makes one that's a recreation of that cabinet as well. But you can probably find on eBay or something. I use Marshall 2061X. Let's see here. Favorite plexi in a box pedal: Bogner, Lagrange, Box of Brock, or anything else. The Box of Brock is a little more JTM 45. It's got a very big bottom end, but it does sound good. I just find it higher gain. It's a little flubby. But that's what JTM 45 is doing. I guess that's what they voiced it around. The Bogner Lagrange is really good. And you're saying, does it come this close to the Sur SL68? I mean, you can hear it in the video I did for it. I think it's a really great representation of that sound. Yeah, try the Lagrange. Nothing sounds like the real thing. Ain't nothing like the real thing, baby. But yeah, it's a close approximation of that sound and feel, and I think it sounds really good. Definitely. Even the Bogner Blue is really quite good. Okay. They do more than Headless, says Steven Kiesel. But yeah, they do them. That's the main ones I've known them for. I'm not that familiar. I'm not that familiar with their guitars, so I shouldn't comment. Actually, those carbon Kiesel guitars, I have never played one, so uh, I should try one at some point. What guitars were on Bill and Ted? I don't remember, to be honest. Love Strats with the '70s headstock. Yeah, dude. Here, wait. I'll show you guys a photo. I gotta go in my photos and find one. I played a '69 that was refinned candy apple red the other day. In this guy at a bar in Hiroshima, uh, he owns this bar and he's got old Marshalls and Plexis and some cool old guitars and stuff. Here it is. Can you guys see that? That was a oh sorry, there it is. It's a '69. Obviously the big headstock, and I don't know if well actually I took a picture of the headstock. It had the most cool nicotined out headstock. See how smoked out it is, and like that's just real aging from that guitar being in that bar forever. And people smoke a lot in Japan. It's it's getting better. It's not as smoky as it used to be, but I love nicotine stains on guitars. It looks cool. So anyway, that was a cool guitar, man. Played great, big frets, and it had been refretted and stuff. But a really cool '70s Strat. I'd really like to get one, like maybe '68 to '71. I would love to have one at some point. After that, they get a little funky to me, like a little too. It was like like the mid '70s through the late '70s, the quality was getting. Occasionally, you play one that's cool, but they're really all over the map at that point. As far as like there can be big gaps between the neck and the body, and the tolerances are just all weird. Sometimes I look at the body of them, and it's like they look weird, like they were sanded weird. Um, like the angles are all off, and the arm contours looks weird on them and stuff sometimes. The late '70s. Uh, let's see here. Vives says, "Love your channel so much. I'm living in Tokyo, Japan, using 100 volts because that's the power over here, 100 volts. But US is 120. Yes. Do I feel any sound or tone change when I'm using guitar pedals or amps in Japan? Well, no. You have to use the right, like a step up or step down transformer to get to the right voltage, though. So they do that on my amplifiers here. They've got the transformer. If you take a US amp and you plug it in here, yes, it works, but it's funky. It's a little weird. It doesn't sound right to me. I did it. I tried it, and the headroom was weird. It was like the amp was distorting too early. Um, and somehow I don't really think it's the same as using a Variac. You might think, oh, I could take an old Marshall and plug it in here and it would be perfect. Maybe. I don't know. I should ask Sir about that, actually. Like, can you take an old Marshall to Japan and plug it in? Is it like using a Variac at 100 volts? I'm not sure. But yeah, you want like on my most effects and stuff like that are all they all have most of them the switching power supplies these days where you can run them anywhere from like 100 to 240. So you know pedal effects and things you're not gonna it's not an issue. But amplifiers definitely you should use a transformer to make sure you're using the right voltage. Um, Okay, let's see here. John says, "What is the harmonica-like effect starting at 105 on Life in Venus?" So I'm using a wah and the Boss Hyperfuzz pedal, and I'm using the Dunlop Mini Crybaby on my pedal board. I use my pedal board to record that part, and the trem bar. And it's just kind of the way I'm playing with the wah and the trem bar and the fuzz. And I really love that sound. That's the hyper fuzz, it's one of my secret weapons, that pedal. It's like when I want to get it crazy, like interesting. It's kind of Octavia-ish, but with more distortion. I think it's a really great sounding pedal. Right. Looking down here. Do I like Kemper? Yes, I do. I have mixed feelings about it. I feel like it kills amplifier sales to some degree, and I have a signature amplifier. Soon to be more than one. Didn't Groove Tubes make those fathead things? Yes, I think so. I think it was an Aspen Pittman thing. I think so. he did do that. Good evening, Pete. Using a Kemper with Marshall 412, but thinking of splitting with Slush and full range for piezo. Any thoughts? That's coming from Rock Camp 56. Using a Kemper with a Marshall 412, but thinking of splitting with Celestion FRFR for piezo. Sorry, I don't understand. You mean like using Celestion PA speaker? I just don't get the question, but maybe you can clarify. Anthony says he loves his Sir PT. It's seriously so versatile. Awesome, thank you. The switching is beautiful. Do you have a switch position that turns you on? They all do. No, I use all the sounds on the guitar. Really, I use the split 2 coil a lot for single coil clean stuff. I use the neck split quite often because I think it's got a beautiful sound. It's kind of a low output single coil sound to be sure, but it works and sounds really good to me. Bridge pickup obviously when I want to rock, and even the middle position I use when I want a kind of a gutsy, I burped. Gutsy 2 humbucker Les Paul kind of thing. So I really have made use out of all of them. Probably it's funny, the neck humbucker is I guess the sound I probably use the least. But I love that sound, it's generally when I think of the neck humbucker, it's like gainy solos, that slash thing or something, kind of fat, gained out neck humbucker thing. And I don't actually do that a hell of a lot. But I like that sound. Mashogil says you watched Nagabuchi's show in Osaka last year. Amazing show and performance. Thanks. Yeah, Osaka Joe Hall. That was his birthday that we played there. And we actually started this tour back in that same venue. So less than a year later, we went back and played there again. It's a beautiful, great big arena. Love that place. Steinberger was one of the early headless guitars. Yes, Strandberg is more recent, right? Yeah, and the original Steinbergers were super cool. I love that they were so radical and doing something completely different with the molded, body composite kind of thing. They weren't trying to be a traditional guitar, and that I think is the way to go with those things. Is just do something completely different, because once you get the head off, it's like. I don't like the Steinbergers when they're like even the cheaper ones that are made out of wood and stuff. It's like, no, if I got one, I want it the composite. I want the original, the molded thing, no wood, little body, that whole thing. I like that. If it's going to be a Steinberger, that's what it should be to me. It's a completely different thing. Mike says he wants to get one of my custom Sirs in gold. Love the gold. I love the gold too. They nailed the gold. We had to go through a couple different. The first one I saw, I was like, looked more like Shoreline gold to me, like a Fendery gold than it did the sort of 57 Les Paul gold. And so then we got with the paint people and said, it's not quite right. And I showed them some photos and stuff, and they, got together with the Sur folks and stuff, and then they kind of nailed it. It looks really, really good to me. Leon says, Sur Pro with a roasted maple neck. As good as the antiques? Yeah, sure. Sort of quality-wise, as far as good, or there's no difference quality-wise between the Pro Series or the antiques. Absolutely none. It's just the Pro Series has a set spec, and so they can, because they're guitars that are coming. I don't want to say they're assembly line, but it's just you can't order custom options on the Pro Series. So what ends up happening is they can make them quicker and with more. It's not like every guitar, okay, I need to do this spec with this neck shape and these frets, which takes longer to kind of put each guitar through the production process. With the Pro Series, it's just like, okay, you can get these colors and we're making the guitars. Here's the neck shape, it's a set spec. So it becomes a little bit more like, like I said, I don't want to say like an assembly line guitar, but in a way it's made by the same people. It's same process and all that stuff, but when you don't have custom specs, you can make them quicker and kind of keep things more, it's just a consistent spec, and it's a little more efficient, I guess, in the production in that sense. So then they can, they're less expensive. What guitars did I bring with me? I have the blue Sur, I have the gold Sir, both my signature models, and then I have my Scala, Leo Scala, which is kind of like a Les Paul style guitar. I have my DG335, which I'm using for the last couple songs in the set. Dave Grohl, the blue Trini Lopez style. I have some Takamine acoustics, a couple of them. I have Mac Mull Telly that I'm using on a few songs with P90s. My tech is actually lending me it looks like a Jazzmaster, but it's got all Telecaster parts on it. So Telecaster style pickups and bridge and stuff. He's lending me that for one song where I've got it tuned down to D. I've got my Les Paul here, my R9, but I'm not using it at this point. I played it on a couple shows though, and my vintage Strat, my old 64, is over here that I'm using on two songs. Yeah, his new single is actually both his new singles. I'm playing that guitar on. Two new songs. I'd love playing that old Strat live. It plays so good, feels so good, sounds awesome. I'd like to try the Eddie Van Halen 5150 Steinberger with the trans trem, the tremolo that keeps every string in tune when you use it. Yeah, it's cool. Strings that bend the same intervals. They were really neat. And Eddie is, like, the guy wrote songs around that bridge, and it's so cool because he's, how that song was. It was that Summer Nights was. You can't play the song without that guitar. You have to have that bridge, and I love that about him. He wrote songs that really utilized that gear. Some piece of gear had come out, and then he, a quick story. I went up to this crazy cool story, but I went up to 5150 one time, and I got out of my car, and I could hear guitar blaring out of the studio. I was like, oh, he's jamming, and I went and I looked inside, and he was standing there and he's playing guitar. And I was like, oh, God, that's so amazing. And then he stood in front of me and he played for about, just smiling at me and playing for about 10 or 15 minutes. It was one of the coolest things I've ever seen. But obviously, right? It's like just ridiculous. So cool. And I, shitty and grin on my face and just loving every minute of it. But he was playing, the point of the story is that he was playing the white, you may have seen pictures of the guitar in magazines and stuff, but he had a white EVH guitar that had the Drop to Hell bridge on it, which is like a bridge that he designed and was developing, and I don't think they ever brought it to market, but it had a flip lever for the low E string, and you could, I believe what the concept is you could go between any two pitches. So instead of just being like a drop D, kind of going between E and D, this thing you could set, and it had this big flip lever on it, and you could set it to say go between drop D and a B, or something like that. So you could go way down low. And so you're like, oh, okay, that's cool. I can use it kind of like I would a D-tuna or whatever they're called for the, useful, He was playing it like an instrument. So he was playing it like he did on Summer Nights and stuff. He'd written a song, and he was playing me the riff, the song, with chords and, riff. And it was like, and I don't remember what it sounded like other than he's playing, whatever he's doing. And he had written this whole thing around the bridge. And I was like, fuck, it was so amazing. I was just like, he's still that guy, like just creating these amazing things, with the gear. But it was seamless and cool, and he was, and I asked him, like, are you guys gonna, is this thing coming out? And he goes, it's hard to explain to people, like people don't. And I was like, man, if people just saw you using it like that, because it was really, really cool that he'd written music using the thing. I wouldn't have gotten it if you just explained it to me. I would have assumed it was kind of like the D-tuna, but no, he was using it in a musical way, exactly like he used the trans trem on Summer Nights and stuff, where it became an integral part of a piece of music he'd written. I thought that was so cool. So anyway, that original Steinberger bridge is amazing. Nobody used it like Eddie. Really, really amazing. And they were neat because the one thing that I would have loved to hear people do with it is use it like a slide, because I can imagine that you could get, if you could. Like, you guys remember Michael Lee Firkins? He was I don't know what he's doing now, and he was an amazing guitar player, I thought, that played really he came out during the whole shred era or whatever, the original like '80s, late '80s. Um, but he would use the tremolo bar and it sounded like slide so great. Kind of Jeff Beck a little bit, I guess, but he was doing it in a much more sort of like country rock kind of sound uh, context. And I can imagine him with a trans trim like the Steinberg would have sounded really amazing. Doing these bending chords and things to make it sound like almost pedal steel or like slide guitar. But so um, Jay is asking, Sir PT50 update. So amps are coming, new stuff's coming. I can't tell you. Like, I mean, I'll tell you this. I mean, I've got some stuff coming up where I'm like, I would love to have an amp for these things. And they're saying we're going as fast as we can, we're going as fast as we can. And I know they're working. Kevin Sir is amazing. John's son has become such a big part of the company in the last few years, and he's working his butt off every day, doing some really cool stuff for the new amp. That's taken a little bit of time. I think everything's basically ready to go with some new designs, and now it's just a matter of they can basically be built, but we're just waiting for some suppliers to deliver certain things and stuff, and then they're gonna, then the next step is just have a working prototype basically. But the design's basically there, all ready to go. Everything looks great, and Kevin's amazing. Some of the stuff he's come up with, I'll just like some of the stuff he's integrated into this new amplifier designs is things that we just couldn't have done like 5 years ago when the original PT100 was designed. There's now things that he's, because of his skills and expertise, that are happening that are really contributing to like a really creative new design. I feel like so it's going to be great, but it's soon. Soon. It's not a year away. It's months. So I hope to have one, working, ready to go within. I can't say, or John will get mad at me. Let's see here. Somebody from Detroit says they have a Fender bass breaker with a greenback. What's the best pedal for plexitone? Well, we were talking about the Lagrange. That's great. Other ones you can try are the the Ramble FX Marvel Drive is really good. What are some other good plexi pedals? The original Plexitone pedal is great, or the smaller yellow version is great, but it's a little more like a modded plexi high gain kind of thing. The Friedman BE does that too. It's kind of, you can think of it similar to the Plexitone, just a different toned version of that with some more options as far as the tonal shaping goes. His Dirty Shirley pedal is probably more like the gain of a Plexi, actually. So you could try that too, Dave's pedal. The Sir Riot is great. It's hard to go wrong with the Sir Riot. I feel like these days you can find them all over the place. It's not such a boutique pedal that it's difficult to find. And the Riot Mini is killer. It's small and it sounds just awesome. What's the other one? EBS is the company, I think. And they've got a pedal called the Little Brute Drive 2 that I did a video on my channel of, and it sounds great. It's really, really cool. So there's some options. Kurt says, any tips on songwriting? He's only written a couple songs. Here's some good things to do. I was just talking about this with somebody this morning. A great songwriting exercise is to take songs you like and analyze the structure of them, the form. So intro, verse, chorus, bridge, whatever it is. And analyze that, and maybe take another element like the tempo or the groove, something, and then write a song, but don't do anything harmonically the same. So different chords, different melody and all that stuff, but just steal the form. And that's a great songwriting exercise. So the exact length, maybe even the tempo, so the song's going to end up, if it's a song that's 3 minutes and 28 seconds long, play it at the same tempo, do the exact same like amount of bars and everything, write a song, and it kind of forces you into a bit of a box, but it also teaches you about song structure and about, oh, okay, I see, I should go to, when great classic songs, when the intensity shifts or the emotion shifts or when the sections are shifting, it'll inform you a little bit about that, I think. So that's a good songwriting exercise. Steal the form of another song and maybe the tempo or the groove, and then write your own song based around that. That would be a good thing to do. Learn lots of Beatles. They were the masters. It's hard to go wrong if you learn. If you learn 10 Beatles songs, you're going to learn a lot about great songwriting, I think. No matter what style of music you play. Country, metal, doesn't matter. Time for a G3 slot, says Julian. I would love to do that. Take me out on G3, somebody. Joe, take me out. I'll open up at 5:30 or in the evening or whatever. That would be great. Okay. The chat went all the way to the bottom, so sorry, I'm just moving up here to find my spot where I was. Okay. Can't figure out where I was. Sorry, guys, just one sec here. Okay, I'm just going to start here. Oh, I think I figured out where I was. Any chance you can release patches for the Helix? The one you did for the Axe Effects floored me. I'd be happy to make some sort of official ones. Yeah, I mean, just not something I've done, but I would be happy to make some Helix presets if they ask me and give them to them to release. Line 6 has been so supportive of me. They're just terrific. So I'd be happy in return to make them some presets they could release. Kevin says, without YouTube, unfortunately, I would not have heard of your work. Well, that's the beauty of YouTube. It's really given me a different kind of career, to be honest. And it really has mainly been YouTube. It's an amazing thing for me. Have I played the Sir Aura 59? Yes, Bobby says. John did an amazing job on it. It's great. I want one. They're so limited, though. They can only make a couple a week. And they literally sold every single, like the first year was limited to 100 guitars because they just don't have more capacity to make more guitars of that style at this point. And so they sold all 100 within the first day of NAMM. So they're busy making those guitars, trying to fulfill all those orders, and they'll be making them till January, I guess. So I tried it, and I thought it was just terrific. Sean Tubbs told me he might make next winter NAMM. If he does, and I get to attend, could I please see you two jam together at the Friedman booth? That's L. Scott music. I would love to do that, but Sean would shred my ass into the ground, so it would be embarrassing. I love Sean. He's such a good player, and a great guy. Super nice guy, and an amazing guitar player. Really amazing guitar player. He does good work. Premier Guitar just called me a tone scientist, says Mike. I'll be a tone scientist if that's what they want to label me as. I'm happy to be that. Did I play guitar on the studio version or guitar version of Chris Cornell's song "Long Gone"? No, I believe it was. So he did a rock, kind of pop rock version of that song with Howard Benson producing, and I believe it's Phil X actually played some guitar on it. Many times when you go to a producer and you're like, let's do this song together, they just use their guys. So he did that, and I think it's Phil X on the studio version. I played a bit I played on 2 songs on the Scream album. I played on Climbing Up the Walls and Enemy. I played guitar on those 2 songs, but then on the single version of Long Gone, I believe it's Phil. Okay. Have I ever tried a PRS 509? No, I haven't. I haven't tried that particular one. I played a PRS the other day for the first time in a long time in a music store. And I used to have one. I had a Custom 24, the maple neck one with the alder body and maple top. And I used to have a McCarty too. And picking them up, it's like, oh yeah, I remember what these feel like. But it's been 20 years since I owned a PRS. They're not mine thing. I feel like it's a guitar that if you're a PRS person, you play that guitar. That's the guitar you get used to. 25-inch scale, that certain feel of the body and stuff. But they do feel good. It's not that I couldn't get used to it. I think they're a good feeling guitar. It's just, I personally, I guess I never bonded with. They look great. I don't know how to describe it. It's like I'm a BMW driver. I have a BMW now. I'm very comfortable driving those cars and stuff. When I see certain Mercedes, I'm like, that's a nice looking car. I don't think I would ever buy one, but that's a nice looking car. I don't know how else to describe it. Uh, it's they're a super nice guitar, but I'm more comfortable with other things, I guess. Cool tones on the album. Time to go down to my studio, says John. Go down there and rock, dude. Oh, you're talking about the harmonica sound on Life in Venus. Yeah, I like that you think it sounds like a harmonica. I think it does too. Like, I might not have thought of that until you said it, actually. But no, oh yeah, I get that. The certain sound of the wah and the way that the notes bend and stuff. It is kind of harmonica-esque, I guess. Uh, let's see here. How do I deal with the volume drop off when I switch from a humbucker loaded guitar to a guitar with single coils? Um, I use a compressor live a lot. I've got the Wampler Mini Ego on my board, and I've always got the level. I find that, so with a humbucker, obviously it's a more powerful output of the guitar, and you're going to hit the threshold of the compressor a little sooner, and it's going to squish. With a single coil, you won't hit it quite as soon. But what ends up happening is, my point is that if you kind of pump up your overall clean sound with a compressor, it's going to limit the dynamic range of your pickups anyway a little bit. So I find that when I play with single coils and I've got the compressor on, I'm not missing that much. I'm kind of a wuss when it comes to clean tones, and I like compression, so I use the compressor with full disclosure and impunity. I just turn that thing on. It's basically on all the time when I'm playing clean, and it does kind of limit your range and help um, put all the pickups into one perspective, I guess, is what I'm getting at. Without so much level difference. How do? Oh, okay, sorry. Moving down. Oh yeah, Aura Brown Sugar. That's a great pedal. I did a demo of that recently. And that's kind of got the plexi thing as well. That's Marcelo was mentioning the Aura Brown Sugar. I think kind of maybe as an answer to some people who were asking about plexi pedals. That'd be a good one to check out. Probably a little tough to find because it's, I'm sure, made in limited quantities from Brazil, but really good sounding pedal. And I did a video of it right before I left for Japan on my YouTube channel. Here's a great question. Savvy Symboyant says, I'm starting to play bigger venues now and need some advice on working with sound engineers at the venue. Any tips on breaking the ice and making things work better with new sound guys? I guess respect is the number one thing. There has to be a mutual respect. I have problems when they kind of try and box me into a corner, or when I feel like they're just really pushing themselves on you to change your sound, but there has to be a give and take. It's just part of it. So introducing yourself is the number one thing. Probably like, hey, I'm a guitar player. Nice to meet you. Just be really cool with them, and then explain your setup and what you're comfortable with, and how you would like your sound to be represented in the PA. I guess like if there's anything you have to say, it's their job to do a mix, but they should be reproducing what you're trying to present. So it's got to be a kind of a team effort. It's if you get somebody that's crusty, it can become difficult. I don't know. You just kind of have to. At the end of the day, you're going to be up there on stage, and they're going to be out there with the fader, and they kind of have the control, I guess. So establishing some trust and mutual respect, and just being a nice person, I guess, right off the bat is probably the most important thing. If you find them to be exceptionally difficult, then it gets tough. I don't know. There's not a hell of a lot you can do. You kind of have to. At the end of the day, they're gonna neuter you if they want to. But hopefully they don't want to. Hopefully their job should be to make the band sound great and present. They're not unlike a mixer or on a record. Their job is to present the band in its best light. And so whatever that means. Hopefully that they're going to do that. Just try and not. There's not a hell of a lot you can do if you do. You're not going to change somebody. So if you get somebody that's crusty or testy, or they're try not. It's the worst thing in the world, getting into altercations or bad arguments or things like that with people like that. It just leaves you get up there on stage, you don't have a good gig, you feel pissed off, and It's not fun. So you kind of just keep it all friendly and let them know you're willing to work with them. If one thing you can do that really really helps is if, for instance, you're running into volume issues, look at where your amp is pointing, and if it's kind of amazing how like certain amps are super penetrating and loud and can just go like a laser beam right to the front of house if they're pointed right at the person, you know. So suggest if I would start off like this, but actually angling your amp so that it's not pointed right at front of house, or you can kind of angle it out a little bit towards the side so that it's not pointed inward towards the singer or right at front of house. You know, look at the way that your speakers are angling, and actually angle the cabinets a bit towards so that they're not in this direct. 'Cause guitar speakers are really beamy. You know, I understand the many sound people, and their point is a lot of the time it's like, you know, you're not standing in front of it, you're you know, the thing's hitting your pant legs many times, but they're getting that beam right out in the, so it sucks, you know. Guitar speakers are really an imperfect thing. um, Bonamassa, you know, he loves to turn it up and play loud, but he just tackles it by and kind of, you know, solves the problem by using those plexi shields in front of the amps, and you know, he can still hear it on stage great, I'm sure, and then you know, there's no beam hitting the audience, and he can crank it up and get his tone. So that's one option. But yeah, just working with them and things like that, like suggesting, hey, would you, you know, I can angle my amp a bit, and maybe it's going to be easier for you to mix without that direct beam, you know, hitting them right dead on. So that's a good one. Um, let's see here. Oh, Sam got a Gold Top Sir PT. He says he loves it. Has some fly dates coming up. Any recommended cases to keep the instruments safe? Uh, the best investment you could possibly make is probably into one of those SKB I series. They're the molded cases, and they're actually waterproof. Supposedly you can throw them in the ocean, and they'll just like float. Or if they, you know, they've got a water signal around them. We get water seal. A seal. That's what I wanted to say. I'm not suggesting you throw your guitar in the ocean. Don't do that. But I bought one of those cases years ago, and they're not cheap, but it's an incredible guitar case. It's got wheels on the end, and you can roll it with a handle. You know, if you're going through the airport or something like that. I throw my guitars on planes all the time with that thing. It's built like a brick shit house. It's like, you know, just a terrific, terrific guitar case. And it's kind of made getting flight cases from a company like. I used to buy, you know, I've got some great cases from A&S and stuff, but there's these big bulky things with the metal corners and, you know, big flight case. With the SKB case, it's the size of a regular guitar case. And Gator makes some nice cases like that too. I think that, you know, they're every bit as strong and as durable as a traditional road case, and they're just less bulky and they weigh less and they've got wheels and they're just cool. So I would get one of those. They're probably going to cost you at least $250 or something. I'm guessing. I think I paid $250 or $300. I bought mine here in Japan. But great investment. So check out one of those. Many times you can carry your guitar on planes, but it's a little risky. So, you know, sometimes it might be easier to just put it in cargo. Okay, Recamp 56 is saying, sorry, Pete, meant the Celestion full range split with greenbacks in one cab. Right, so does Celestion have a cabinet that lets you do that? I don't know about that. Or do they have a speaker that lets you do that? I'm not 100% sure about that. I seem to remember something in NAMM that's like that. Could be really cool if you've got one cabinet that you can use you know, for traditional guitar sounds, then it can be full range for your acoustic piezo type sounds. Sounds like an interesting idea, sure. You're forward thinking, my friend. Do I like the Blackguard Telly? Yes. Love it. Never owned one, but that's because they're $40,000 now to get an old one. But yeah, they're cool. You can always get a reissue. I have one. I have a Sir actually. I do have a Sir that's a Blackguard. It's just not, you know, a vintage Telly or whatever. But it's a really cool guitar actually. Zachary says his hands are small, having trouble learning to play thumb over the top of the neck to fret the low E string. Practice to make it better, or should I give up? Do I play the thumb over the top? Sometimes I use my thumb over the top, like Hendrix style. Yes. Um, Maybe you just haven't found a guitar with a neck that you like, because no matter what, there should be a guitar that has a small enough neck that you feel like you can get your thumb over the top, I would think. Um, let's see here. Can you buy the new album on CD, and where? Yes, cdbaby.com. If you search cdbaby.com, go to the Pete Thorn page, or Pete Thorn 2, and you will find my album there, for sure. Let's see here. When am I coming to Australia? I would love to go there again. I don't know when. Our keyboard player is actually the keyboard player that is playing with Nagabuchi now. He does a Queen tribute with the guy that you guys know that guy. I think his name's Mark. He's an incredible singer that does the spot dead on Freddie Mercury. You've probably seen him on YouTube. He's in a band with that guy, Queen tribute with him, and so he's headed to Australia right after this tour, and they're going to go play a bunch of dates. That should be a great thing. That's from Samantha Barnett. Check it out if you see, maybe do a little research and see if they're coming to your town, because that guy sings. It sounds identical to Freddie Mercury. It's amazing. Need more dialing in an amp in the zone episodes. Yeah, I'd like to do an AC31 next. So when I get back to LA, I will try and do that. What are the best tremolo bridges for bending notes, preventing notes from going flat? Okay. You could use a tremolo for that. On a traditional bridge is a thing called a tremolo that allows you to lock the bridge, but it's not perfect. I think there's only does the Super V do that? Or I remember the original Blade. I'm getting way out of the weeds here, but there was a guitar called Blade that was, I think, a French brand, and they had a tremolo where you could bend the notes and the bridge wouldn't go flat, but that was only on those guitars. There's not many of them. The best thing to do is almost get a tremolo on songs. That's a thing that in the back it's got these thumb screws and allows the tremolo to float, but then when you want, you can lock it to just go down, or you can lock it all the way so the tremolo won't work. A little finicky, works, but if you really do a lot of double stop kind of bending stuff and you need it to work, you could probably make it work. When you play a song that's got a bunch of bends and stuff in it, you could lock it and then do that and then unlock it if you need to use the trem. But maybe somebody else has a better suggestion. What amp did I use to record Promise from Guitar Nerd? Shit. I think I used... I want to say I maybe used my... I think I used my Bassman and my Badger 30. And I was running in stereo with 2 speakers mic'd. So I think I split to both. That's my memory of it. Could be wrong. It might have been just the Badger 30. But my first... This is a long time ago. I mean, it was like 6-7 years ago. But I seem to remember running somehow through maybe like a reverb pedal or something, and splitting out to the 2 amps. And then micing both speakers and using both those and panning them in the mix, I think. Am I still digging the Mobius? Yes, it's from Chris. Love it. Love it. Let's see. Jim Len says, Michael Lee Firkins played Jason Becker's music. That's interesting. They were probably old friends from way back in the day. And I'm sure Jason probably tapped him to play his music, since Jason's not playing guitar now, but Jason's still brilliantly composing and making music. I'm using a dual rectifier from Metal. Any suggestions for an overdrive pedal to push the front end? Probably just something in the Tube Screamer variety that lops off low end would be great, because the dual rectifiers have kind of a loose bottom end, I find. So yeah, something that pushes mids, cuts some lows, and kind of gooses the front end. I know it's just kind of a boring suggestion, but it would be hard to beat that, I think. That's kind of what you want to do with that amp to boost it. TS9, the good old TS9 or TS10, or maybe an SD1. Let's see here. What kind of music do I wish I were more proficient at? Probably like jazz. I wish I had more jazz vocabulary, just a little. Just for the improv skills and harmonically and stuff like that. I wish I just hadn't ignored it so much. How do I protect my wallet from my wife? Chronicles of AJ. Well, that's a deep one. Maybe you have to be like the dad in 6 Feet Under. Remember that show where he passes away and then they find out he had a whole separate life with an apartment, and his one son becomes obsessed with trying to figure out like what was he doing, you know? I like that. It was a good plot line. Good show, 6 Feet Under. Wow, what a great show. That was when TV got good. The Sopranos, 6 Feet Under. It's like, whoa, TV is all of a sudden, it's a whole new ballgame. Let's see here. Left pedal, purple plexi. I haven't tried that one. Somebody making a suggestion about a plexi pedal. Left pedal, purple plexi. I like a lot of his pedals, though. They're great. I used to use a Eternity, kind of for a lead boost. That was a great pedal. Have I played or tried a Fender Pro Junior 3? No, I have not. Do you ever take your Kemper out to gigs? A little bit. I have used it, yeah, and it worked really good. Oops, the chat just skipped all the way to the end. What the heck? Kurt says he just bought my album on iTunes and he's checking it out now for the first time. Please check it out. Let me know what you think. Share with friends. Let's see here. Have you ever played 11 gauge strings for any length of time on electric? Not really. I just am trying some different strings right now, to tell you the truth, because I'm starting to feel like 10s are just too damn heavy for me. So I'm experimenting. I'm kind of a wuss. I don't know if it's just getting older or what, but I'm messing around with some slightly lighter gauges, so we'll see where I go with that. But 11s, I can't deal with the bends and stuff. I just don't have the hands. I don't have real strong hands. I need kind of low action and big frets, and you know, I've just never been built for like I wish I was Josh Smith or something with my 13s, but I'm just not physically made for that. Let's see. Aaron says has on a Strat a modern Strat bridge with a roller nut, and you have the bridge set non-floating. As long as I keep the nut oiled, it stays in tune great, and I can do double stops. Cool. Yeah, if you got the spring tension set just right on a bridge that's blocked so that it'll only go down, you can do like a double stop bend, and the bridge won't. You got to set it so that just right at the whole step where you bend, the bridge has still got enough tension, but you go a little beyond that, and it'll start to pull down. Otherwise, I find if you set the claw too far in on a tremolo, it's too tense, then the bar just feels weird. So it's a fine line, but yeah, you can set up a bridge to do that. Am I digging Greta Van Fleet? That's a good question from Ken Phillips. Okay, so I put up a post this week about it because somebody posted the song that they did on Kimmel. No, not Kimmel. Who's the guy? The Tonight Show. God, I'm having a senior moment. Why can't I remember the name? The Tonight Show's host's name. Fallon. Thank you. So Greta Van Fleet played on there recently, and what's my thought on them? Well, it's too close for me to Led Zeppelin, and I'm not one to criticize because I think it's great. I do think it's great there's bands out there playing rock, and I do think it's great that there's younger people playing music like that and stuff and rocking out. But I just wish. I'll use the example of Soundgarden is an awesome example, I think, of a band that was definitely Zeppelin influenced at times, and Chris will say that. I mean, he was good friends with Jimmy Page, and he you know, I remember him, giving great props to Jimmy and saying, you made it possible for us to do these different things and open up the whole world to, So he loved Led Zeppelin and stuff, but he he also made the point that the things that they took from Led Zeppelin were one thing, whereas other bands would take the more sort of, I don't want to lump. It's just like the singer of Greta Van Fleet when he stands up there and he does the real Robert Plantisms with his hands and stuff, the gesturing and the. It's like, dude, you don't have to do that, and you can musically go. So this is where Jack White is a genius. Jack White is a genius to me because, and he basically lays out the whole game plan in It Might Get Loud, where he says, I wanted to play this, essentially blues music like Son House, but I can't go out and do that and just like no. He said basically we had to dress up the White Stripes in a way that kind of distracted you from the fact that they're basically playing traditional blues a lot of the time. So like with the him and Megan and the outfits and the red and white and the whole thing, it didn't look or it had nothing to do with aesthetically certainly with traditional blues or anything like that. But a lot of the riffs and stuff was just so I thought that was great, and I feel like Greta Van Fleet is just too close. Even Rival Sons to me when they first came out were great band, great guitar player. I love the guitar player in that band. I like the band, but I like now that they've gone more kind of in their own direction and gotten away from some of the sort of 70s isms. Um, I talked with Chris Cornell about this about Soundgarden was special because there was Sabbath going on there, and there was punk rock, and there was Led Zeppelin, and different things going on with Soundgarden. But even just aesthetically with the band, right? They looked like nothing else. Kim had a unique look, and Matt looks like a college student back there on the drums. And then they've got this great big tall, bass player, and then Chris was this rock god, right? If they had all kind of looked like a '70s rock band or something, like the way that they, it would have been like I don't know. It wasn't just about the look. Obviously, it was about the music and the way they interpret it and stuff too. But there was things there that kind of made you think it was. There was older elements that were coming into the music, and it was kind of dressed up in a new way. I don't know if I'm making sense, but you know what I mean. It's like Soundgarden playing Outshined. I'll use a bit. Burden in My Hand. Go listen to that song. It's very Zeppelin-y to me. Um, Super Zeppelin-y, but it doesn't necessarily the first thing you hear when you hear it is the first thing is this is like a Zeppelin. It's like they took the influence and did it in their own way, and it was divorced enough or separate enough from Zeppelin to be a new thing to me. And with the Greta Van Fleet thing, it's just too close for me. Played well. I think there's a lot of right going on with them. There's a lot of great things about them, and I support that. I think it's terrific, but I just wish that they would just be that's my honest, and I hate being critical like that almost of anybody out there playing rock and trying to, but you got to push it forward. There's going to be a thing where maybe kids see it and be like, this is like my grandpa's music. It's like it should feel like fresh and new to for people of that generation, for people their age. Shouldn't seem like a throwback thing, both in the fashion and in the music. Also, I just think like, yeah, that's all I want to say about it. I don't want to seem too negative about it. I honestly don't. Can I talk about the EVH guitar? Which one? You mean like the Wolfgang? That's Chiaki. Andy Wood and Mateus Asado tour. That would be some different musical stylings, but I hope Mateus has God, I really hope Mateus puts together a band or something and does like, wouldn't it be great if Mateus had a band where there was because he's such an amazing guitar player, and to see him in a context of like with a great singer and amazing like a whole because he could be the next Neil Schon or Steve Lukather or something, within the context of a group. Curious to hear your thoughts on the EVH Wolfgang as well. I love my EVH Wolfgang. I've had one for 10 years almost, and it's a great guitar. I used it recently in to play Cathedral in the video for the new EVH chorus pedal. Terrific guitar. The only thing, and I think they've actually changed the size, but the small frets I have a little trouble with, just me personally, on the Wolfgang. I would like to get the guitar refretted maybe actually with some bigger frets, but other than that, I think it's great. Wow, I've been going an hour and 20 minutes, and we still got 175 people online. Fun. Thanks for joining, folks. I appreciate it. Have I tried using a 1 meg volume pot instead of 500K on a Sir Signature? I think it would be too bright for me. I like the little bit of, I mean, because my pickups they're not dark, you know, they're lower output and stuff. So I kind of, I'm pretty sold on the slightly 500 plus, you know, like 520K like pots. I just like that sound. That when you know, a couple guitars that I've played have the thing where you can kind of decouple the volume, like, you know, where it's just a direct from the pickup to the output jack when you flip the switch, and it is kind of amazing how much a 500K pot sort of rolls off. It's, you know, you're losing something for sure through the pot, but it just mellows it in a way that I like, I guess. They called them a blower switch on Tom Anderson's. God, sorry, burping. I have my red Sir Telly that I haven't used that much in the last few years, but it has one of those switches on it that'll just go straight from the pickup out to the output jack then, and you can flip that switch and really hear that, you know, it feels like you get 10 or 15% more all of a sudden when you take the pot out of the equation. But I like that little bit of mellowing of the pickup the pots give you. Okay. Jim says he's talking about the phenomenon of bending a string and the other notes going flat when he uses a tremolo. Floyd Rose seems worse than other floating bridges. Yeah, so when you're doing a double stop bend and the high note goes flat. And yeah, I would agree with you that on a Floyd, the Floyds have a lighter action than, say, a typical Fender bridge even, and depending on how it's set up with the springs and stuff. But Floyds tend to dive a little bit more sooner. It's true. The only thing you can do is get a tremolo or block the bridge. Know of a good budget in-ear monitor that is very reliable? I don't really know that much about the cheaper ones, like the generics, but I know Fender has some. I think the main thing is like if you got some of the, you know, Fender ones or something, find something that you're comfortable with and then that's readily available in case they break. Because man, the cables. You know, every year or so I end up busting a cable in one of the earpieces, and then you got to wear your backups. So make sure you find one that's readily available, and maybe get some extra cables. That would be my main advice. I hate in-ears, man. I really do. People always try and sort of talk me into it and go, no, it's great or whatever. It's like I am in the camp that, you know, I played an arena show 2 days ago with, you know, whatever, 10,000 people there, and I pulled them out on the last song. And I just can't get past Nagabuchi's audiences are loud. And I can't get past the fact that I'm playing, and then I'm like, screw this, and I just take them out. And then it's like, my energy, I don't know, it feels like I just got injected with 100% more energy from the crowd and the audience, and hearing, you know, all of a sudden I can hear the PA and just everybody chanting and going, and it's like, okay, if you're playing in maybe that's a special circumstance that maybe, you know, I'm lucky and not everybody gets to experience that. But if I could, okay, if you're just, you know, you're doing a smaller gig or something that's more intimate, there's not that crazy crowd there and whatever, the in-ears would be fine, sure. And you can enjoy playing, you know, club gig or a quieter gig or something like that, and it's cool. But when you're on that big stage and those people are going crazy and you got the in-ears in, it's one experience. And as soon as you take them out, it's like you got like a shot of adrenaline in the arm. That's what the crowd feels like, and you're kind of taking yourself out of that experience by using the in-ears. I can't. I don't know. If I could, my ultimate thing would be to have a perfect just wedge monitor mix on stage with a little bit of my guitar on the side fills, and I could play the rest of my life and be very happy that way. So in-ears is a tough subject for me because I feel like I'm always like recommending something that at the core I hate. This just feels anti-music to me, but I know some people like them. Trevor says, I can't stop listening to your new CD. I love it. Thank you, man. That means a lot to me. It does. It was a little bit of a painful birth process, but it feels great to have it out, and I'm just happy it's out there. and I'm really happy if you like it. Thank you. Uh, Wish there was a way to better hear my amp when playing with my band. We are not currently miking up. Do you angle it? I mean, that's the easiest way. Take a hockey puck and stick it under the amp. Get it a little more toward your ears, Or, anything you can do to just point it at. It's a fine line because I don't like it actually pointing directly at my ears. But sometimes when it's flat on the ground as opposed to just angled up a little bit, it's like, oh, I can hear a little better. Make sure that you experiment with that. Was I considered for the Bon Jovi tour? No, I think that it was. I think that going way back. I mean, Phil did it. I can't sing like Phil X. I can sing and I'm okay, but he's a real strong lead singer. So it's like that Richie role. You got to have somebody like that, and that would, you're gonna seriously limit your pool of people that are able uh, to do that gig. So he's a perfect person for that gig, and they really, I think, got lucky finding Phil. Uh, he was able to step in, and he's such a pro too, and like, on short notice to be able to come in and nail it. Um, you know, he kills it. So I never heard about it or anything like that, but it wouldn't. I don't think I would be somebody that would be. I could see the conversation going down like a John Bon Jovi thing. Like, well, what am I going to do? And somebody saying, well, I know this guy. He plays the shit out of the guitar and he sings his ass off. It would go something like that, And then all you got to do is look on YouTube or something, see videos, and go, oh yeah, I got to check that guy out. So, uh, let's see here. I'm gonna go soon, but Matt says I'm not a fan of the 10-inch radius on a lot of PRS guitars. 10 inch is kind of standard Les Paul radius, though, isn't it? I think 12s. I think 10s are like the 10-inch radius is what it's on a Les Paul. So that feels pretty good to me, because on that style of guitar, anything, a flatter radius on a Les Paul style guitar feels a little weird to me. It's got to be the Les Paul style thing. So that doesn't bother me. But if you're coming from Fender, it might be, or a modern. What I mean is, because Fenders, some of them, the vintage obviously are 7.25, but if you're coming from a 12-inch radius or maybe a compound, uh, you know, 10 to 14 or 12 to whatever, it would, maybe 10 feels flat or too curved. Blah! Losing my mind. Hadley says your mixers are so clean. Thank you. I'm like a hobbyist mixer, I would say, but I guess now it's part of what I do. Mixing's a challenge for me, but I like it, and I do think I'm actually pretty decent at it now. Over the last couple of years, I've gotten more confident about it, and it's just a matter of time of building your chops. We're all kind of having to become. I heard Martin Miller say a little while ago, like we've all become mixers and engineers kind of out of necessity because we don't have the money to necessarily. That's the way the music business has gone. We become our own promoters and publicists and mixers and mastering sometimes and all kinds of stuff. So you have to be a bit of a jack of all trades these days. Once you realize you can do a mix and release a song yourself and put it up on the internet, and people like it, you get good response. You go, wait a minute, like maybe I can do all this stuff. Then it becomes a question of whether or not you want to. On my latest album, towards the end, getting it done, when I say a painful birth process, doing everything can be, you just get exhausted, It's nice sometimes to just give it to somebody you trust, and then if you can get it back, like a mix or something, go, oh yeah, you made it sound great. That's the best thing in the world, because sometimes you can just like take a day off or concentrate on other things, other work you've got to do or whatever. When you got to do everything, it's great, but it's also to be able to do, but it's also, it's hard because now you wrote, recorded, put all this time in. Now you got to mix. It's like you got to still maintain perspective through all of that. That can be a tough thing. Have I watched the Dallas Shoe rig rundown for the Edge? I have not. I should watch that though. Probably would be really interesting. The Edge adds capacitors to each guitar's cable to hit the amps the same way. That's interesting. So he's tuning each guitar to have kind of a similar response tonally. It's not unlike what Billy Gibbons does, where he's using he uses some sort of, I think Marshall JMP1 preamp or whatever, or an programmable EQ or something to make all the guitars sound similar to pearly gates. I sort of enjoy the fact that all the guitars sound different and play different, and like, that's why you pick up a different guitar to get a different thing, so that doesn't bother me. But uh, I can understand that the outputs of the guitars, like we had the question earlier about the pickups and switching between single coils and humbuckers. It's nice to have consistent output sometimes. And I find sometimes that all I need for that is a bit of compression, and that helps. Reverb before or after delay? I run it after usually. Any advice how to mix these together for a solo sound? If I'm running in series, which I am most of the time, I run it after. But it is nice to run in parallel. If you can have your reverb separate from your delay, then you can get distinct echoes as the reverb is tailing. Otherwise, what happens is the delay kind of goes into the reverb and washes out gradually. But that's not a bad thing, depending on how many repeats you have. If you want it to be a cleaner, where you really hear those repeats and it's got a little bit more definition and stuff, then the answer is to use something like a Sur Mini Mix 2 in the effects loop of your amp, and then you've got two sets of ins and outs on a mini mix, and you can have your delay and reverb in parallel and run them separately, but then it gets complicated. Did I just lose you? That's because it's more complicated, and running in series is easier. That's what most of us do most of the time. So, yeah, you could always use a multi-effects processor that allows you to internally run, like if you use an Axe Effects, for instance, in the effects loop of your amp, you can run your reverb and delay in parallel within the one processor. I'm not sure if you can do that in an H9, because there's the delay algorithms, and there's algorithms in the H9 that allow you to run delay and reverb within the same presetter algorithm or whatever effect algorithm, and there might be an option to do it in parallel. I actually don't even know that. I should look into that. My JCM 900 was stolen, says Hadley. I'm going to run, by the way, in a second here, but just a couple more questions. Any other brand that sounds similar? A recommendation? I don't like harsh clipping, so I like tight, smooth, and singing. Well, similar to a JCM 900, I mean, you got tons of options now. If you're looking for another amp, I mean, the PT100 is a great one, of course. Friedman. So many options out there now as far as sort of refined Marshall. The good old Marshalls sound great, and a JCM 900 is not a terrible amplifier, but there's better. You say that you like tight, smooth, and singing. You're probably going to like a Friedman better, or my amp. The PT100 is going to be more. It's like a more refined Marshall voice, basically. The 900s are they just sound kind of cheaty, like a slightly ratty way or something. To me, they're not horrible. I could play a gig on one, it'd be okay. Oh, this is cool. Wendell says he liked the pick he used yesterday that came with his PT2 CD. So we did pledge music thing where I signed CDs and stuff, and then we sent some picks out as well. He says, I've always used Tortex, but I like the Ultex pick. Yeah, so the Ultex picks, I agree. I like them a little more than Tortex. Not incredibly dissimilar, but they're not the same. And the Ultex have this really nice feel. So I've been using them for 10 years, and I like it. I'm glad if I was able to, through sending you the CD with those, to turn you on to something else that you might dig. I think they're pretty cool. Is the King of Tone worth the 22-month waiting list? The best thing with things with waiting lists, like pickups or pedals where they're kind of boutique-y, is just get on them and then forget about it. And then in 2 years, your name will come up, and then you'll be like, oh, I guess I forgot about that, and then get one. It's a great pedal. I use it mainly for the clean side. I've used it on my pedal board. I don't have it on there right now, but it's great for what it is, and it's got a terrific the Prince of Tone sound. They make a separate pedal called the Prince of Tone. That's the clean side of a King of Tone. Really, really terrific sound to me. I like it. You're correct on what the live sound engineer should do, says Wayne. It's like working with Dancing with the Stars together is always best. Knowing what the artist's sound is in what they want. Yeah, I feel like the best sound guys are always, they've got a job that they have to do, and it's sometimes difficult, and if you can help them do it on stage, that's great. But it shouldn't be at they shouldn't be neutering your, I'll give you an example. I mean, like Government Mule is a great example of a band that has a lot of big amps on stage, SLO 100, SVTs, two Leslies on stage. You know, it's a fairly loud on stage, but the band knows how to play all that gear so well. You know, they're old school. They play with the volume controls on the guitar. They're very dynamic. Obviously, it's Warren. He's an incredible guitar player. Those guys know how to play with all that horsepower and throttle it back, and you know, so that it's a loud stage, but it's very controlled at the same time because the musicians are so good. So they're doing their job. And when you've got all that horsepower and great gear and stuff, and it's up loud, but you can control it on stage, now the sound person's job, their only job is to just fill in around that, you know, and make it sound powerful live, but just to be an accurate representation of what's going on that stage. Now, so the key in that is that they're doing their job, and they're doing it exceptionally well, and they're making it easy for the sound person to just fill in around their incredibly powerful stage sound. If you're just up there with a loud amp blaring away, you know, and like playing super loud and not dynamically, and you can't control, then they get pissed off, and that's the majority of the time when sound people get jaded and stuff. They've been dealing with a lot of bands that just, you know, they don't have the skills really to you know, it's like driving a race car where you're flooring it all the time and just crashing into things, I guess, would be the, you know, the analogy. You got to be able to control all that power, and then their job, it becomes very simple for them to just to fill in around that and be an advocate for the music, you know, be part of the team, essentially part of the band. Yeah. Yep. Okay, I got to run pretty quick, you guys, but any interest in doing a Fender Tweed, like a deluxe or high-powered twin for an Amps in the Zone episode? Yes, I've never owned one. I would love to own a Tweed Deluxe. God, I remember playing a Victoria Double Deluxe once that blew my mind. What a great sounding amplifier. It was essentially two Tweed Deluxes in one. You know, it was a double power Tweed Deluxe. Great sounding amplifier. I loved it. But I don't have a hell of a lot of experience with them. Have I ever been to any Richie Kotzen gigs or Winery Dogs shows? I've seen Richie live a few times. Seen Yogi caught up with Richie in Europe last week. Yeah, Yogi and Richie, I think they know each other from back in LA years ago. I saw Richie the first week I moved to LA play at the club that was the Central, which was pre-Viper Room. So Viper Room was 90, 91, 92, whenever it started. So I saw Richie in about 1990 at the Central on Sunset Boulevard. I remember that. And then, you know, different. I've never been to a Winery Dogs or seen them in recent years, though. Use an SKB I-Series case for my Fractal AX8 rig, says Aaron, and it's literally a rolling bomb shelter. Yeah, they're terrific cases, the I-Series. Did I see that Butch Walker had guitars stolen at a hotel in Newport? I did hear something about that, which is terrible. Our bass player here actually plays with Butch Walker. The bass player that is playing, his name is Why Not. He plays with Butch. He's about to go on tour with him when he gets back from here. But I did hear that he had some guitars stolen. It's terrible. Really crappy. Okay, I'm going to go right to the end here of the chat, you guys, and L. Scott Music is saying, do I still use the 2 notes cab now that I have the aux? I've been using the 2 notes are great for live. You can use them in the studio, obviously, but my Torpedo Lives, that's what I've used in France when I go there to tour, because they support me really well over there, and I can load them up with my impulse responses I like. I still use a cabinet on stage, but I use the 2 notes lives to host the IRs, and to have a 1 rack space unit that hosts an IR gives you a nice level control there in the front to send out to the PA. They're terrific for that. So yes, I still use the 2 note stuff. I do. I'm going to go all the way to the end here and answer like 2 or 3 more, and then I'm going to split. Does the Jan Ray get used on both channels on the PT100? No, but I do actually want to experiment more with it, because it does. I remember when I first heard about the Jan Ray, Dave Friedman saying it sounds great in front of a Marshall, and does kind of a special thing. And I mainly use it for kind of a Tweed-esque sort of light distortion into the clean channel. But I'd like to try experimenting more with it into the dirty channel. And right now, I mentioned that I'm doing a Helix for a backup rig over here. My backup rig right now is a little pedal board that has a Bondi Sick-As on it, and and a Jan Ray and a timeline. So my tech put it together for me. And there's a JCM 800 head that's kind of backstage, offstage. So if my whole rig went down, I can plug into that. And I've got a little pedal board down in the JCM 800. And the Jan Ray in front of the JCM 800 I set up for a dirty rhythm sound, and it sounds great. It sounds killer. So that made me think I should try the Jan Ray a little bit more with the dirty channel in my amp and play with it a bit to get a cool blended kind of distortion. Your signature pick has the tip more rounded than the Ultex 73. That says Rick. No, actually, they make them both. It's just a standard Ultex 73 with the round tip. They make them like that as well. You've probably seen the ones with the sharper points because they make that too. But mine's not a custom tip or anything like that. It's just it's the standard Ultex sort of traditional Fender pick shape. Yeah. Anything else? What's my favorite part about Tokyo? The first thing that came to mind was the people, the culture. I love the Japanese culture and the respect and how everybody's so into their thing and not jaded, and they're really passionate people about whatever they do. Music, guitar. It's just like to be here as a guitar player. When you go to a guitar shop here, or you meet guitar fans, they're just so into it. Like what we're doing right now here, geeking out like super hard. They're all the way with it. They're not jaded about it or distracted by their phones. Well, there's phone distraction here to be sure, but do you know what I mean? There's not a whole bunch of things competing for people's interest here. If you're into, look over there. There's a tower over there. There's an 8-story tower records right over there. You could go over there and walk through the floors there and look at the music. And just watch people, and they're listening at the listening stations to music, and how into it they still are. Like, that's my favorite thing about Japan. It's pretty special. Have I tried the Blue Guitar amp or pedal? No, but I like their speaker simulator a lot. It's amazing. The little box he makes that's got IRs in it. I have one of those, and I think it's terrific. When am I back in the States? A couple weeks. Headed back. What happened to guitar solos in popular music? I think the guitar is, coming back, or has been for a while, and you're hearing it more these days. I still think the key is the solo's got to be part of the song and be integral, not just be filler. Otherwise it sounds kind of cheesy or like throwback. But I'm hearing lots of guitar these days. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Maybe it's because I've been in Japan for almost 3 months, and over here you hear guitar everywhere. That's the other thing. You walk in stores here, convenience store, you hear just shredding guitar solos all the time. It's like it's part of the music here, and it never went away. All right, you guys. I got to split. So this was fun. Thanks for joining, and I'll try and do it again next Sunday if I can. Where will I be next? I think we're traveling next Sunday, so that'll probably be once again no, because Monday I'll be in Kagoshima, I think, so I might have to work that morning though, so I don't know if I can do this next week, is my point. But a couple weeks I'll be back in LA, and I'll be back in a regular Sunday morning kind of flow. Alright, y'all, thanks so much. This was really fun. Have a great rest of your day or night or whatever it is, wherever you are.